Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Gemini for October 2015. Go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, where you can see more about my current offerings, and also you can sign up to become part of my email group and be one of my VIPs and get lots of goodies right immediately and in the future. So we've got a very active month of October. It has its own transits. It also has a carryover from transits that either occurred or began before October that we're working with, multiple layers of things going on. We've got some heavy focus of energy in certain houses for Gemini, so we'll just take this all piece by piece. For all placements of Gemini, either early, middle, or late degree placements, you have some focus in the fourth house, both in the short term and the long term. The planets that move more quickly around their orbits bring this ever-changing, quick-changing energy, which is part of what make the horoscopes different. And because if there's a planet that takes about a month, like the sun, to move through a certain sector of life, for that month it's highlighting this certain area. And so the personal planets that have these shorter term transits are activating sections, and they're really there and then they're gone. So it's like it's a really fleeting period of time that there's activity in that certain sector based on the personal planets. But the longer term transits, like for instance Jupiter, which takes 12 years to move around, it spends about a year in each sector. So there's short-term stories and there's long-term stories. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of each of those. So in any case, there's this short-term focus in the fourth house, and we're going to talk about what that means. For you early to middle degree placements, you also have this longer term focus in the fourth house with Jupiter's placement there. And for you later degree placements, this is coming for you. So long-term trends have begun and are going to be continued well into next year. That is the expansion on the focus of home. So like I said, you've got different personal planets activating in this month of October or into November for some of you. And then you've got this longer term energy of expanding the energy of home. The fourth house rules home, family, ancestry, houses, so real estate, anything related to real estate or construction or something involving homes. If you work from home, then your work could be highlighted in this sector. It rules your parents, traditionally mother, but sometimes can also rule father. It rules your childhood and psychological studies and topics and issues and helping people with psychologically based things. And it's also one of our water houses, which rules emotional energy, our relationship with our emotions. So all of these things in the short term are being highlighted, things are being brought up. And then this longer term picture of working with opportunities here are getting very solidified. This energy makes me think very much of the making friends of emotions. Now, Gemini energy is very mental, it's very quick moving, it's very quick changing, and depending on what your personal imprint is, you may have just one Gemini placement and then a bunch of Cancer placements, and so you might be more like your Cancer counterparts than your Gemini counterparts. Without knowing how much of the ingredients you have of these different signs within your personal chart, it's really hard to tell how this would manifest for you. But the general energy of Gemini is not very emotional. It's very on to the next thing, and it's thinking and talking fast and gathering information and, just very active and very busy and very social, and not very much focused on the emotional things. Like emotional things are just kind of things to, they're nasty things. It makes me think of this movie called Song of the Sea. It was made by the same people who made The Secret of the Kells, which is a lovely animated movie. But in any case, there's this witch in there, and she talks about emotions as being just nasty things. And that's what I feel like with the energy of how this is lining up for you. If you've just kind of put the emotions over to the side like they're just nasty, and you don't want to deal with them, then this is a time that you have an opportunity to start to make friends with your emotions, and your life is going to improve tremendously the more in touch you get with your emotions. For the energy of Gemini, emotions are more mental things. Like you can talk about emotional things in a very mental, objective way, but the actual feeling of them is totally different. There's a book that I love called The Presence Process. He says with the Presence Process, don't do this book to feel better, do it to get better at feeling. And ultimately you do wind up feeling better, but that's only because you get through the things that you have been avoiding. You know, so your life patterns that are coming up, certain types of people or circumstances that you're bringing to you, that if you look over time, you're like, oh wow, I have a pattern with that, you know, that's over and over again. And if it's something unpleasant, then you've got to work at the root cause of why you're attracting those things. There's lessons for you that you haven't learned, and the presence process and other inner work can help you to do this, and the stars are very much supporting you doing this now. There's also another movie that I think of with this. It's called In and Out. It was just recently in the movies. I don't know if it will still be by the time you're listening to this, but you can get it on DVD. But it's basically giving these different, you know, fear and disgust and all of these strong emotions that we have as like little people in our brain running us at different times, you know, and so many of us would feel like, oh wow, well just joy should run us, you know, and in a lot of ways that's true. But we need all of the emotions. We need all of them to have a complete life, to deal with certain situations, to be functional. We have to have access to all the emotions. So we have to embrace all the emotions, you know? And that's the astrology of this time, is very much giving you this message to embrace all of these emotions. So for you early degree placements, and for the rest of you, this is coming soon, you've got this strong focus in your 5th house. And the 5th house is the house of children, creativity, pregnancy, things that matter related to your kids, creative projects. Many people feel like their creative projects are like their babies, and for some people they're their only babies, and they experience them as their children. That energy is in the 5th house, the house of romance. It's also called the house of true love. And the energy of just really enjoying something, enjoyment, savoring. That is where the energy is going as well. So a pretty strong focus, especially in the short term, for enjoying things and doing things that are fun and just savoring the moments of things. Even if you feel like you're in a transition, well really we're always in a transition onto something anyway, right? Everything is always changing. But if you're going through something that's a little bit challenging, like let's say you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of extra money and you are dreaming of a time when maybe you'll have more money. And let's say you have kids and you don't have a lot of extra money to spend on doing things that cost money with your kids. Well, there's things that you could be savoring now with them because maybe you have more time with them, and maybe in the future if you're doing something that makes more money you'll have less time, then you'll be thinking about savoring the time now instead of now with your mind being in the future, savoring the present moment. There's so much energy around being with unconditionally what you have going on right now, because in the future this period of time right now is going to be the good old days. And even if it seems like there's challenges there are certain things you're going to look back on that are happening now that are going to be so close to your heart that you're like, ah, I love that time, you know? And the more present you are now, the more strongly you can imprint the memory. And also if you're in a moment where, this is a little NLP trick, a neuralistic programming technique, if you're in the moment where you're savoring something like, you know, maybe your family is surrounding you, or the sky is perfectly blue and the weather is perfect and your loved ones are around, something that's really magical for you, to help imprint that pathway in your brain, you can put your fingers together like this. As you're thinking about all of the multiple senses being involved in that experience, when I think about times that I've done this in the past, the feeling comes back to me so vividly of wonderful experiences that I can recall them with all of the details. And it really, really works. So this is a time to savor things, you know? And that 5th house is telling the story. Also, you might find that you're highly creative. You might find that you're prolifically expressive. You later degree placements, you have that same strong energy that has already gotten into the 5th house. For the early degree placements, you still have this really strong energy in your 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of your communication and your expression. And Mercury rules Gemini, and the 3rd house is the house of Gemini. So this is like your house. So everything that makes Gemini Gemini is embodied in the energies at this time. And for you later degree placements, you even still have Jupiter there expanding that. So writing projects, speaking projects, sharing information, education, both teaching others with things that you've learned, compiling things that you've put together over time to assist people, and also educating yourself on new things. You know, whatever, if you're a person who is doing communication on the level of the internet and sharing in that way, then there's always new cutting edge things to be learning about. And if you haven't gotten to that point, but you want to be there, then you have to learn about whatever is current and how you can get your message out there and be part of this magical thing that's happening on the internet, where people are changing the whole nature of their experience through sharing information and doing their passion online. And you've got amazing energy there. For all of you, really, it's just coming in through houses that are different right now, but the energy, the story is still the same for all of you, you know, time to get your messages out there in a bigger way if you're already doing it, getting your message out there if you haven't been doing it, taking those steps. So a lot of that is, you know, the bulk of the story you have going on right now. We also have Venus retrograde shadow period ending October 9th. So Venus went retrograde July 25th. Venus went direct September 6th. Venus rules love, beauty, money. So anything involving finances or relationships or cosmetic things or self-esteem that have been coming up for review over the previous months. Once September 6th came, Venus goes direct, but it doesn't regain full speed until all the way here on October 9th, you know? I always describe this retrograde energy as making a U-turn, you know? So Venus is cruising along in June of this year, and then it's like as of June 22nd, it had to start slowing down and shifting lanes to go make a U-turn. And then, you know, July 25th, it made this U-turn, and then it was just kind of stalled out there, waiting for all the cars to pass, you know? And then September 6th, it finally got in the lane, and it's got all these cars whizzing by it, and it's trying to gather speed. So between September 6th and October 9th, it's like in that awkward motion of getting back up to speed. So once October 9th passes, Venus is free and clear from the retrograde, but you've got a series of challenging Venus lineups. Venus squaring Saturn on October 10th, Venus opposing Neptune on October 16th, the first one bringing reality checks, the second one bringing chaos, confusion, and disillusionment. And then once we get towards the end of the month, around October 23rd, October 24th, you've got Venus was already clear. You've got Mercury clear because Mercury went retrograde September 17th. The shadow period starts August 29th, retrograde September 17th through October 9th. Then from October 9th through October 24th, Mercury is getting back up to speed. So by the time you get to around October 23rd, 24th, Venus is clear, Mercury is clear, and then Venus is in this winning combination with Pluto, a trine, and a conjunction with Jupiter. So it's like it's a happy ending from this crazy story of everything being tested and tried on differently with Venus. So doing your trying things on, doing your reviewing, doing your testing, doing your everything going backwards over old things, then by the time we get towards the end of the month, you're ready to launch some new things. And probably a lot of the things you launch new are going to be based on things anchored in the past, which have been solidified over the previous months of all these retrogrades. So we've got the energy of the eclipses still very fresh. The eclipses happened September 13th and September 27th. You may have started to feel the news or get information that was coming in about the eclipses starting at the beginning of August. Up to 6 weeks beforehand, you can start to get eclipse news. You know, these transits, whenever I give you dates with things, they very rarely are just isolated to that day. Usually there's an orb of energy, depending on what transit is, what planets are involved, etc., that ranges from days to weeks, and for some transits, months, beforehand and afterwards, where the energy is present, even though it's not the date that the event is actually happening. You know, if you had watched eclipses before, or were looking at it from an you know, the point of view of astronomy, then it would be like, oh, the eclipse happened. Oh, there it is. There's the eclipse. And then, oh, no. Okay, the eclipse is done now. Well, astrologically, the eclipse is not done. Eclipse stories are long. They start way before the event. They go way after the event. In this particular eclipse cycle, I went into more detail about this in the September horoscopes. But this eclipse cycle, Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle, is running into 2017. So some of these stories now might have a couple of years worth of evolution, you know, before you get all the pieces. It's not just this month or this couple of months, but by the time we're in October, most of the big news will have come in and you can kind of see the direction things are going. And for some of you, that would have been amazing news. And for some of you, it would be terrible news. And for some of you, it would be both. And some of you may not have too much happen either way, but you're holding space for other people who are having these powerful changes in their lives. So all of that's going on in October. So I can't see what's going on in your individual chart. If you would like some assistance with working with your stars and working with your energetic stories, then you can check out my website, aspiritualspark.com, see about my personal coaching, see about my programs that I've put together based on doing many charts over a long time, and really seeing what's at the core of the questions people ask and the problems people have and how you resolve those things. And then also, you'll start to see my apprentices showing up on my website, people who I have been training who are ready to assist, and you can check that out. And definitely sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community. So I hope you have a wonderful month. Take care. Bye.